Hey everyone, Simon here. I've got a question for you today. Can you name 5 differences between Vedic astrology and tropical Western astrology? By the way, Hecklefish says hi. Um, well, I hear some of you saying, well, one uses the tropical zodiac, one uses the sidereal. Okay, that's a freebie. You get that for free. What else? Well, some of you may say Vedic astrology uses the nakshatras, which is the 27 or 28 Vedic asterisms, older even than the zodiac. Okay, that's 2. Some of you might say the dasha bhuktis, the various dashas, right? From Vinchotari to all the other timing methods in Vedic astrology. Good. Number 3. What else? Some of you might say, what about the Navamsha, the harmonic charts, the subcharts? Yes, that is another major difference between Vedic astrology and Western tropical astrology. What's another major difference? What's that? Yes, I heard somebody back there say yogas. Any of the thousands of yogas, Raja yogas, Daridra yogas, Dhana yogas, and so forth, that can tell the difference, that give us the difference between an ordinary life, let's say, and an extraordinary life, whether it's extraordinarily difficult, as in the case of many Arishta yogas and Daridra yogas and so forth, or in the positive sense of many Raja yogas and so forth. So now, I bet some of you who are more advanced can name 10 other differences. Can you name some other differences? We'll come back to yogas in a second. Well, what about the fact that there are sounds in the Vedic zodiac? Every little bit of the zodiac gets a sound associated. What about the fact that we use the drekanas in a very specific way? We, meaning Vedic astrologers, assigning to them bird drekana, animal drekana, and so forth. What about the fact that we use what? What else do we have? We have tithis. We assign specific deities to every phase of the moon and has associations and both for electional astrology and so forth. What about the fact that we use various, and this is more advanced now, right? But various points in the zodiac that are calculated, kind of like the part of fortune, and Western tropical astrology uses the part of fortune extensively, and it's Antisia. But things like the yogi point, things like the Brigu Bindu, which is tropical also has that because that's just the midpoint of Rahu and the moon, right? So Western does use that, but and so forth. So there are big differences, and there are also a lot of subtle differences. But among the big differences, one of the big ones is the use of Raja yogas. If you don't know what the Raja yogas are, and I'm going to go into it in this class, but this is, in my mind, the most important factor in reading a horoscope. It's more important than, oh, look, you have Jupiter here, and that means you're very wise and very smart and blah, blah, blah. That's nonsense, right? That doesn't give a person actionable information. And what Raja yogas and Dhana yogas and so forth are meant to give is real world information. Like, what is the status in society the person is likely to achieve? What is the status of their spiritual advancement? Because there are even yogas for spiritual advancement, to determine, hey, this person wants to come into the ashram. Do they have the chart for it? Can they sit for meditation 6 hours a day, right? Are they fit for this life? Yogas can help you ascertain that. And so to learn these yogas, I have a bunch of free classes on YouTube, which you can see here. Introduction, any of my introduction to Vedic astrology classes include yogas and a whole bunch of stuff. This is free to you. If you really want to go in depth, I'm going to bring up the site here. My partner Nadia has an beautiful intensive class on the fundamentals of Vedic astrology. So this part of this video is brought to you by ardramoon.com. You can go here, you can see this beautiful website, Core Fundamentals of Jyotisha. This is an amazing class. Already the reviews are coming in and they're rave reviews. People just love Nadia, I guess. I love this class. Of course, you can check out my classes here as well. But to learn the core fundamentals, including how to ascertain the strength of planets, how to use the Shabukti, how to understand basic yogas, this is your fundamentals class. Okay, so now let's move forward and let's take a look at how these yogas operate, because they always operate within the context of a human life. And I remember one time some of the students of Hard to Foe, my Jyotish teacher, who taught me a lot of this stuff, came to him and they showed him a chart. And that chart looked really good on the surface, but it had a specific yoga. And they were trying to trick him. They said, "What do you think about this person?" He said, "This person is a homeless person. They're a beggar." And they're like, "How did you get that? How did you know?" "Yes, it's true." Because the chart looked really nice, benefics and all that kind of stuff, because of the yogas. Now, let's take a look at the chart of Rabindranath Tagore. If you don't know who this is a poet and a famous man who won who's a Nobel laureate as an Indian. Now, this is in the early 1900s. This is in spite of India being occupied by the British at the time and tons of racism and so forth going on. And yet this man, through the power of his yogas, was able to achieve an extremely high status, not only in his society, but in world society. So let's see what's going on here to kind of give us a clue. What do we have here? We have a Pisces rising. So let me remove my, well, before I do that, one can go into Parashara's Light, which is a software I use, and go into classical references. And if you go into BPHS, which is Brihad Parashara Hora Shastra, then you will click here, and I'm going to minimize my video here, and go straight to the chapter on Raja Yogas. Okay, so if I click on that chapter, it's very beautifully done. It gives you the Devanagari, the transliteration, and the translation. Now, there are bound to be little mistakes here. I think there should be Raja Yogan. Atataha sampravakshami Raja Yogan Vijotama Yesham Vijnana Matrena Raja Pujyo Jano Bhavet Ye Yogaha Shubhana Shambhuna Proktaha Pura Shaila Sutagratah Tesham Saram Maham Vakshye Tavagre Dvijanandana. So it's beautiful. Just reciting these is a mantra. Just reciting these is, you feel the power of it. And all he's saying is, hey, I'm going to tell you about these yogas that were told by Shiva. Who? Shambhu. Now here it says Lord Shiva. It should say Shambhu, because that's what it says in the Sanskrit. And instead of Parvati, what does it say? Shaila Suta, the daughter of the mountain. Agrataha, in front of her, narrated in front of her. Tesham saram aham vakshe. I will give you the essence of them, the sara. Not the gist. The gist is like, so listen, it's the gist. It's like, No, the sara is the lifeblood, the essence. Vakshe. Tava agre vijanandana. Okay. So this is the chapter on the Raja Yogas. And how does it begin? Look, it tells you, okay, that they can be calculated from here to here. What is the first yoga? For the first yoga, we need to go to verse Shloka 6. Shaddha Lagna Lord and the Putra Lord. Putra is the fifth house. Exchange Rashis. Lagne she panchame bhave Panchameshe cha lagnake uttratmakarako vipra lagne cha panchame stite. Okay? Lagneshe, upon the Lord of the Lagnas inhabiting the sign of the fifth. It says Panchama. It doesn't say Putra. Okay, so a lot of these translations are no bueno. They're bueno, but they're not exact. It doesn't say Putra Bhava. It says fifth house, Panchama. So when the first Lord is in the fifth and the fifth Lord is in the first, this is the first Raja Yoga. The person will be famous. Khyataha. Khyata is beyond famous. It's like known. And Sukhanvita, full of happiness, full of good space. So let's take a look at this chart. What do we have here? We have the Lord of the first house, however you want to look at it here, right? Lord of the first and the fifth, and the Lord of the fifth and the first. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have a full, massive Raja Yoga. Why do I say massive? Because in Sanskrit, there is no pronunciation, not pronunciation. There are no, what you call it, periods, exclamation points. There is no way to emphasize which is the most important. There's no bold, right? Like here, this text is bolded. So the way we emphasize in Sanskrit is we put the thing first, just like a bullet list, just like when you put things in order, the first thing in the list is the most important. The last thing is also the second most important. So that's how you know when you read a chapter of any of these books, the first thing they mention is typically, not always, but typically the one you need to pay attention to. And then the last one is what leaves the impression, right? That's the thing you're left with when you look at a chapter. So the first and the last thing. So what does this say? This says when the first Lord goes to the fifth and the fifth Lord goes, not either or, then you have a Maharaja Yoga. Now, in the previous verse, it said that these yogas will be powerful according to the strength of those planets. What do we have here in this chart? We have the Lord of the Ascendant, Jupiter, not only in this Parivartana, exchange yoga, but it is exalted at the same time. Now, for an exalted planet, if you've taken some of our classes, you know this. Exalted planets have to be qualified by their dispositor, the planet that disposits the exalted planet, in this case, the moon. But what is the moon doing here? It's the participant in the Parivartana Yoga. By definition, they disposit each other. So both of these planets are not only strong, but Jupiter is exalted on top of that. Now you could say, yes, the moon is dark. Yes, it's dark, darkish. It doesn't matter. This person was a poet who wrote 3,000 songs, who from the early age, learned languages, including Sanskrit, who wrote beautifully. He became the poet laureate or the Nobel laureate. This is not just because, he has moon in the ascendant and therefore he's emotional and he feels things. Okay, that's true. But the status of the life is indicated by the power of the yogas. Now, this isn't the only yoga. I'm giving you an example. This is further deepened by the fact that Jupiter is also the Atmakaraka. Some of you may have seen that. But what else is going on? This moon participates in other yogas as well. It participates in a number of yogas that are triggered by Venus and Mercury in the second house from the moon and the second house from the ascendant. And Venus and Mercury themselves create powerful yogas for performance and art, and so forth. So when we look at this chart as a whole, we see that it is conditioned for greatness. It is conditioned for an experience of big things in life. Now, that is not the only Parivartana yoga. Why do I say that Venus and Mercury are powerful? Because they also exchange. There's also an exchange between the second and the fourth lord here, between Mars and Mercury. Anytime Mars and Mercury involved, you get someone who is either a great debater, because Mercury's words, Mars is force and power, good martial artist, good dancer. You see Justin Timberlake here, Mars, Mercury conjunct together. Mercury also, here, let me pull up the South Indian really quick. Mercury also in exchange with Saturn. So there's another Parivartana yoga. Now, am I comparing Rabindranath Tagore and Justin Timberlake? No, Tagore was by far the greater poet, right? But Justin Timberlake's probably the better dancer, the better performer, maybe even, right? So, but they're equally, at least, you know, for today's time, Justin Timberlake is super famous. Rabindranath Tagore was also super famous for his time. So these are yogas that confer status. Okay. So, I mean, haven't you wondered sometimes why some people have tremendous success and you look at them and you go, he doesn't sing that well. They're not that, and yet they're super famous. This is the power of yogas. So in Vedic astrology, we go, it's got to be the yogas, right? Because person's personality or their talents don't seem to be that exceptional, but they're super famous. But sometimes the talents are exceptional and their fame is exceptional. But I'm sure many of you have gone to the train station or the subway and you've seen people performing, and they're amazing performers, jugglers, dancers, whatever. They're not famous. They don't have the yogas, presumably, right? So let's take a look at another chart here. This is the chart of Taylor Swift. This is a chart with so many yogas, your head will begin to swim. And so, like her or hate her, and most people love her, right? It is not an accident. Her success is not an accident. Again, we have Venus in the second house. And by the way, with Tagore, we also have a nodal Raja Yoga with Mars and Ketu, Mars being the lord of a Trikona. I mean, you can go through this and go through, in your head will spin in this chart as well, as it will in the chart of Timberlake, as it will in the chart of Taylor Swift, who, by the way, her chart is stronger, I believe, than Timberlake's, certainly stronger, because all of this stuff is angular. It happens in the Kendras. But here again, we have a very powerful exchange. What do we have? Mercury in the house of, oops, sorry. This is, my bad. Let me pull up the correct chart here. This should not be the Navamsha. This should be the Janma. Sorry about that. Mercury in the sign of Jupiter, Jupiter in the sign of Mercury. Again, an exchange. And this is called a Mahaparivartana Yoga, a great exchange. Why? Because it happens between the Lord of a Kendra and a Lord of a Trikona. Go back to Rabindranath Tagore's chart. The Lord of a Kendra, the Lagna, and the Lord of a Trikona. Okay. Taylor Swift, the Lord of a Kendra, in this case, the seventh, the Lord of a Trikona, the first. Let's see Justin. What's Justin got going on? His is the Lord of the second and the seventh. So that's not the same. And that's part of the reason why I say this is not as powerful, let's say, but it's still a powerful exchange because it brings all of these planets together: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury, right? In some kind of contact. But I'm not going to focus on Justin today. I want to focus on Taylor Swift and Rabindranath Tagore. Why? Because the level of fame and success is only explainable by the power of the yogas. You have Gaja Kesari Yoga. In the Rabindranath Tagore's chart, you have a type of Gauri Yoga. You have, I mean, there's so many Veshi, Voshi, Narubhayachari, Veshi Yoga, Sanapha Yoga, and so forth. and those are minor yogas, but when you combine them with everything else that's going on, they're additive. You have a benefic in the second from the Lagna, Venus, particularly if that Venus is also involved in other things, becomes a very powerful yoga for success, for having a sweet tongue. Two benefics in the second house makes the person an excellent speaker. Add to that an exalted planet, and you have a recipe for a poet, plus the first fifth exchange, plus the nodal Raja Yoga, and so forth. So with Taylor Swift, we have Gaja Kesari Yoga, we have Parivartana Yoga, and all types of Raja Yogas going on here. Okay. So, and massive yogas for wealth. And actually, yogas for business. Saturn, Mercury in the Kendras create powerful business combos. And I actually talk about this in my Introduction to Vedic Astrology class, the career method, where I go over a number of ways to tell career based on planetary combos. And that is a class that, I mean, it's free. It's right there for you, that you can watch to be able to determine at a glance the type of career the person is likely to undertake. Now, let's see where Saturn Mercury comes in here. Sports business, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu. I mean, this is gold. This was taught by, you won't get this anywhere else, by the way. Or you will get it if you study with my teacher Hart or Penny Farrow or any of the amazing teachers that he created, that he trained. There it is, Mercury, Saturn, business. You see that? So when these are angular, they create the ability to do business. But of course, you have all kinds of other stuff going on. So Jupiter, Mercury, and so forth. And she is an educator, Dharma type. So her life will be around giving good counsel and wisdom through her music, through her charitable stuff. She's an educator, Dharma type. And there's a vulnerability there that educators have that makes them trustworthy, that people seem to trust educators for some reason. Not for some reason, because it's their Dharma. It's their Dharma to share truth with the world. So the point is, one of the things that separates Vedic astrology from traditional tropical astrology is the ability to gauge the level, the playing field that the life will operate at. And some of you will say, well, we're all equal. Yes, we're all equal in the spiritual sense. But in the sense of where do you park your car, we're not equal, because the CEO parks their car closest to the office. You park your car a mile away and have to take a bus to get to the thing, right? So in that sense, you're not equal, as reflected by your chart. Now, well, that's not fair. We should all have access. Should we? The point of Martya Loka, this place that we live in, is that this is the place where we exercise and exorcise our karma. And so that person who has the best parking spot, or Taylor Swift, who has these massive yogas, in the Vedic perspective of reincarnation, has earned the right to that spot. They have paid for it by doing X, Y, Z, in either in this life or in previous lifetimes. So when you see charts like this, as a Jyotishi, as a Vedic scholar, you pranam and you bow down to the person, because they have done things to deserve this. Even people whom you don't like, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they are making the best use of it in this life, or maybe they are, we don't know. But the fact that they've earned this life should be indisputable if you're a student of karma, of Vedic philosophy and Vedic astrology. And yogas and combinations are the way we see that in Vedic astrology. We see what kind of a life the person has earned through their past life experience. And if you find that you've earned a difficult life, or you have difficult combinations, lots of eighth house, lots of obstructions, then consider doing some of the upayas or remedial measures that astrologers or others, your pundits and so forth, will recommend to you to sort of try to clean that karmic slate a little bit. But truly, the goal of these charts and the goal of looking at them is to gain self-awareness, is to understand, oh, okay, this isn't personal. This is karma. It's playing out, and this is how it needs to be. Oh, okay, I have poor health, or okay, I was born to these parents. Now what? You know, it's, yes, some people start life on third base, and some people have to even work to get to home plate to even try to hit the ball. Baseball analogy, and sorry if you don't do baseball, meaning some people start ahead of the game, some people start behind. We can see that through the yogas, but that doesn't mean you're any less of a person, any or that you don't have a dharma to follow. So keep that in mind. And as the more you learn Vedic astrology, the more hopefully you'll appreciate the value that it can add by giving you an insight into what's possible for a person. And I have, for example, I wasn't planning on talking about Justin. I had Justin and his wife, Jessica Biel, because I was doing a compatibility video and looking at their compatibility. And that's another thing we can gauge. We can look at how two people fit together, and in doing so, spare people years of suffering and misfortune, potentially, or encourage two people who are maybe on the fence, and you'll see their chart saying, oh my God, you have amazing compatibility. And you give them that push, and hopefully they get together and have an amazing life. So we truly have an immense tool in Vedic and tropical astrology as well. But I prefer and specialize in the Vedic tradition for most things, although I use tropical for sports and other things, including the part of fortune, which I find to be quite effective using the tropical horoscope. And the tropical horoscope, because of Anticia, I use the Anticia of the part of fortune as taught by John Frawley, a Western tropical astrologer. You can go check out his books. He's very good. Anyway, I think that's it for today. Raja Yoga. So what are the 5 things that separate tropical from Vedic astrology? Number 1, well, the zodiacs. Obvious. Number 2, subcharts, Navamsha. Number 3, nakshatras. Number 4, the Bhukti, the timing periods. And number 5, yogas, Raja Yogas. So remember these, and hopefully they'll make you a better astrologer. Until next time, this is Simon signing off. Namaste, everyone.